Hi, I'm Andy, and welcome to Timely Topics. Today we're talking with Kevin Kaiser. He is an instructor here of graphic design, and we'll be talking about all things graphic design. So welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, well, first, tell us, I'm sure we've all heard graphic design. What is graphic design?
So, yeah, it's a term that's been around for a while, but really to boil it all down, it comes down to a couple simple things. It's putting together words and images to convey an image or to convey a specific message.
Okay.
And so that could involve advertising messages. It could be public service. It could be any number of things. But it really incorporates all those items together.
I see. Has it always been called graphic design?
No, oddly enough, when I started a long time ago, it was kind of known as commercial art, and then somewhere in that period there, it kind of moved into that terminology of graphic design, and it's kind of been that way since then.
So, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got involved in this or in commercial art.
Yeah, commercial art. Yeah, so probably like many kids, I like to draw as a kid, and I just draw all the time in my spare time. And then somewhere along the line, I started noticing typography and advertising messages and things of that nature. So a lot of even my school projects would incorporate those items. So my book reports were very much visual and had those elements in there. And that's when I first started to discover that, hey, this is an interesting field. This might be something of interest to me. So went to Grand Valley State University, and actually not from this area, so I moved away to study graphic design. So I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts with an emphasis in graphic design from there. Yep.
And then did you come straight here, or what did you do in between?
I've had a bit of a winding path. So after school, I worked in a variety of advertising agencies, some marketing firms. I worked in a communications department of a hospital. Spent a large part of my career as the art director at the Muskegon Chronicle. So took a little bit of a veer there and went into newspapers, then went to work at a nonprofit company as a creative director, and then went off on my own. So really prior to coming here, I've owned my own business and just have now, I still own that today, and that's, we're now celebrating 10 years.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about your own business and what it does.
Yeah, it's very much, I'm a sole proprietor, so kind of that freelance designer kind of lifestyle. I work with a variety of clients. They might be nonprofits or for-profit. And I essentially help them with their visual messaging. So it could be anything from creating a logo or identity to a full ad campaign. Package design could be anything in there. So
I see. You mentioned that what used to be commercial art and now it's graphic design. Was there a technological transformation?
You know, well, for sure there was, and I suspect that somewhere along the line that played into it, because we're kind of seeing that again where the terminology is changing a little bit again, where we're starting to call things digital. But certainly in my career, I saw a significant change. I was trained with the traditional methods of a drafting board and a T-square, an angle, and a lot of hands-on type things. And really the first Apple computer came on the scene at the end of my college career. So I had no formal training in that, but it was very much on-the-job training. And so our entire industry has changed drastically because of that. So I like to explain to students all of the desktop tools that I used to use, all those angles and T-squares and whatnot, are now all contained in the computer. Yeah, so we do everything really on the computer.
All right. So what do we offer in terms of, do we have a degree in graphic design? Do most students transfer and get a bachelor's like you did? Or?
Yeah, so we have 2 degrees. We have 2 associates. One is a typical associate's degree where students will pick that up and then they'll transfer on. They might transfer on to Kendall, maybe Grand Valley, Western, something, one of those partnering schools like that. But we also offer a associates in entrepreneur studies. So Very much that a student might get into that program if they're very much interested in going off on their own and starting their own business. So we offer kind of those two degrees, and just a variety of classes that they can take within there. So we offer typography, various levels of graphic design, and we do teach principles of design, and then we do teach 3 software classes. So those are kind of the tools that they need to know going forward.
I see. Yeah. So if students, you mentioned you were kind of an artist growing up, loved to draw.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you could, if you have an interest in art, that's a good thing, background, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it is for sure. As I described before, I guess in the old days, we relied on those skills very heavily. So when we had to do what was a paste up or hands-on type things on the drafting table, but even going as far as in the career field where we had to present concepts to clients, we had to rely on our rendering skills back then. So that helped me in my career because I had kind of some drawing background and rendering. It doesn't hurt students today, but the landscape has changed a bit. So students, it's not as an important aspect as it once was. It's certainly helpful, but
to apply some of those principles
absolutely
to the computer.
Yeah, I often will teach in my classes. We teach in a Mac lab, but we have several tables right in the middle of the classroom where we do kind of our hands-on work, and we'll bring in sketch pads, and I'm a big proponent of at least figuring out what your own visual language is as far as going through that sketching process. I'm a big believer in, I think that's where the concepts really happen before you get on
those ideas.
Exactly, before you execute them on the computer.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
And you mentioned there's some computer classes that is part of the degree.
Right.
Is it important? I mean, if people have more of a computer background, is that good too?
That's absolutely good. Yeah. We teach basically 3 software classes related to graphic design, and they're the Adobe suite in the Creative Cloud. So those are Adobe InDesign, Illustrator, and everyone's heard of Photoshop.
Right.
So those are, I kind of liken those to, that's your toolbox today. So really, I kind of describe a lot of for what graphic designers do today, or what we do here at MCC. It's where creativity and technology collide. It's really those 2 worlds where they come together. So you have to be skilled in both of those areas.
That's somewhat interdisciplinary in some ways, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's good.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, you said if you got a degree in the entrepreneurial degree here, you could go off and work on your own.
Right.
I mean, who would you be working for, or what type of work would that be?
Right. Well, it's a whole wide open thing right there. But some of the classes you'd be taking, in addition to the graphic design classes, you'd also pick up some business classes, and that's a really key thing. I can tell you from my own standpoint of being on my own for a while.
Yeah, being your own business person.
Yes, so you quickly have to learn how to be a business person these days, and that could be everything from learning how to write a proposal for a client, basically a bid, having those presentation skills when you're going out and presenting concepts. But really, it really could be any types of clients, who really need that type of work. So anybody that has a message that needs to get out there about their service or their product, they would employ a graphic designer. So that'd be a great fit for somebody that's off on their own then.
And I suppose I see you have some things that students have worked on. I assume a lot of the projects they have to do are ones that they'd actually probably end up doing when they're out in the field. Do you want to show us one to get us a little start on what a student might do in your class?
So kind of what you're referring to there. This is a good example of a student project, and this is in our entry-level graphic design course. And what we talk about in this course, in this particular project, is it's an event poster.
Right.
So as you
Right.
know, there are plenty of events that happen
Sure.
around the area, and with this particular project, the student worked out the details for the Lexington Bach Festival. So obviously it's a concert type format, but the elements that the student had to work with is using typography, using line and shape and color. But really the big one that we stress in our graphic design classes is the hierarchy of information. So
Okay.
there should be an entry point.
So you see right up top.
Exactly. We should
Lexington
know.
Bach Festival.
Yes, exactly.
When it is. September
Exactly.
14th to 17th. Yeah. And I guess, is that a picture of Bach there?
That is a picture of Bach. So yeah, the purpose of the poster then is to, it wants to grab your attention right away, and then quickly and effectively guide you through that information and leave you with a lasting impression on what to do with it.
Right, right.
So really, that's if you're willing to talk about graphic design, that's kind of the nuts
Get
and
your
bolts of
message
it.
out there quickly.
Exactly.
I mean, if someone would look at a poster like this, how long are you expecting them to look at it?
Well, that's a good question. So a poster, I guess it depends on what
Okay.
the format is,
Format is,
and
yeah.
and if we were talking about maybe it's a typical concert poster, you kind of hit on it before. It's as somebody that's viewing it, it's like, well, what do I want to know? It's like, oh, so and so is playing in this concert.
Yeah.
What's your next question then? It's like,
When is it?
When is it exactly? And then where is it? And
Okay.
how much is it?
Right.
So it's really about that amount of time for you to get through that poster to get that information.
Right.
Now that varies depending on the project. We, in fact, in one of our classes right now, we're working on an advertising campaign, and one of the components of that is creating a billboard. Now, billboard, as you know, has a you don't have much, about 3 seconds.
3 seconds?
You have 3 seconds.
Sounds
So
like even too much. Supposed to keep your eyes on the road, right?
exactly right. So 3 seconds. So we're teaching students in there. It's like, look, optimal billboard language. You have 5 to 7 words
Yeah.
to use there, and appropriate images, and you have to be careful not to get too cluttered because
Yeah.
that message will get lost and people will just
It
ignore
probably
it.
is. People want to put more on, and often more is not better.
That is not better, no. In fact, we often stress quite the opposite. Less is more.
Okay.
That's what we say in graphic design quite often.
Less is more. Okay. What can you give another example of
Yeah,
something
sure.
a little different? That
Sure. I will go through this little project here. This is kind of nice.
Yeah.
You may have seen out in the hallway in our work of the week case, one of the projects is we have students do book jacket designs.
Okay. Which is something that needs to be done.
Yeah, it
Every
needs to be
book.
done. And in this particular case, I have students. We have a fish bowl in the classroom, and they literally will draw names and titles from, in this particular project, classic novels. So this
I
is
see.
Robinson Crusoe, and actually have another shot here showing since they're designing the book jacket.
Well, this is the whole thing.
This is the whole thing folded out. So
Yeah.
the students are required to look at the entire piece, design the entire piece, think about how it's going to wrap around the book, the cover, the spine, the 2 inside flaps, and then they had specific objectives to include on all of those. So
And that one's pretty neat with the way it covers the whole book and opens it up.
Yeah, the student did a nice job and kind of went above and beyond on this one, and you can see it kind of has that old leather feel to
Sure.
it, which was all done in our software. There was nothing.
Nothing that had to be added. Or,
Yeah, so they created all that. So
Huh. Well, that's
very
pretty
good
neat.
project.
Maybe they'll actually take that one up. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Looks like you got also an advertising campaign.
I do. Well, I kind of do. This is in our typography class, and this particular project is the challenge was you had to create something that was called a visual irony project. Okay, so
I see. I get it now.
You
Yeah.
get it now. Yeah, yeah. So this particular student chose McDonald's, And you can see illustrated all with fruit, which of course McDonald's does serve fruit.
Yeah, right. One apple, I think, is about it.
So anyway, that was kind of the purpose of this assignment.
Healthy McDonald's. Oh, I'm loving it. Yeah,
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
yeah, that was well done, I think.
Yeah. I also have a couple other type projects. This is our figurative typography project, and the concept here is to get students very familiar with a particular typeface, so familiar that they could only choose one typeface and then make some kind of a figurative a face from it, essentially. So this, if you look very closely, you'll see that there are no lines or shapes or anything of that nature. Every element of this is a character from that particular font.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And how, I mean, would something like that take hours to put together, or does the computer make it easier?
Well, that's a good question, actually. So this particular project, I believe they had 2 class periods. Our classes meet 3 hours each. But that kind of gets into a larger topic of we often will look at the computer and think, well, you know, this should make everything easier. And certainly it does in many ways, especially when I look back at my career and how we used to labor over a drafting table and painstakingly do things like that. What I've found, though, is students have so many more choices at their fingertips.
I see.
It's
tough to make those choices.
Yeah, you have a lot going on there. So essentially what's happened is all of our work has become much more complex because you have many more decisions to make throughout a project. So
wow, yeah,
it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, you can do more, but yet, what do you do? Because you got so much you can do.
Exactly. Right.
Oh wow, yeah, huh. And so with the projects that you're showing there, I mean, you said 3 hours, so 6 hours to do this project. Well, does that also include, I mean, do they do all their work in class, or do a lot of them work overtime, or can they take it home, or how's it work given the technical nature of it?
Right. So our format, like I said, we have a fully versed Mac lab in there. All students work on state-of-the-art equipment. So we have 27-inch iMacs in there. We're connected to the Creative Cloud. They literally have the best equipment that you can get right now. The class format is a 3-hour class format. Depending on the size of the project or the complexity, I'll kind of decide, hey, we need to do this in one class. Maybe this is over the course of right now we have students working on their last project will take up 4 classes.
4 classes.
Right.
Wow, 12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot involved. We do have open lab hours.
Okay.
Part of the reason we set it up the way we do, though, is because the equipment and the software is pretty pricey. And one of the advantages of here at MCC is you can come in and you don't have to own that equipment or have access to that software.
Right.
So our labs are set up so you can get the work done most of the time in class, but we do have open lab hours as well. So we'll often see students in here after class at different times, because they're really into the project and
their B to an A or things like that.
They're working hard and they want to put that little extra effort in.
I would think some students, I grade a lot of papers, and a lot of them are, well, you're just subjectively grading this paper. Do you get that from students saying, well, you just don't like me, that's why, but I mean, do you have like grading rubrics or ways to explain why you got a B and not an A, or a C and not a B?
Yeah, it's interesting, especially in our field. It's very easy for people to look at it and go, well, it's very subjective. When you start think about color or fonts or design or something.
You just don't like
that.
Purple.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so you have to be careful about that, but we really stress foundational concepts in our class. We go through critiques. Usually every project we have a critique that the class participates in, and that's how we learn.
Right, right.
And that can be uncomfortable for people that have
Sure.
maybe not done that very much, but really the whole purpose of us doing that is to prepare them for the workforce. Whether you get that entrepreneurial degree or the associates and you go on, your work is always going to be critiqued by someone, and you have to get used to that. And really the point there is to feel comfortable talking about your ideas.
Right.
So that's really what we try to do really from day one in a lot of these classes. We kind of say, hey, okay, so tell us what you were thinking with this project, walk us through your ideas, how you arrived there, and then our sample critique actually is a format where we say, okay, class, what did John do well? And then they all participate at that time. They say, okay, now what could John have done better?
Right, right.
And that's how we learn from that.
Yeah, yeah. It's best to learn here rather than when you're interviewing for a job or trying to get work.
Right.
Yeah. Well, good, good. That, and you know, selling yourself and selling your work, I'm sure, is important, as well as understanding what you're doing, making improvements. So, what percentage of our students go off on their own, and what percentage are going to work for a company?
Well, our entrepreneur degree has just started up in the last couple of years, so I think that's still on the upswing there. So I think probably up until then, probably the majority have gone on to a four-year degree. So we're looking to see that those numbers increase, and we're seeing more and more. I mean, we can look in the job market now and see that so many people work from home these days. So we see that as a growing area, and it's a great thing, certainly, because you can work for somebody in California or have clients all over the place.
Sure,
so it really
sure.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's so much easier to work for someone far, far away.
Right. It's certainly possible versus the old days when you couldn't do that. So.
And you could I assume you could do it part-time if you wanted, or full-time if you're doing that type of thing.
Absolutely. It's really a very flexible field, and certainly in that realm, if you're more of a night owl, you can work at that time, or if you're a morning person, you can do that as well. So.
I know a gentleman he works from home. He's able to work in a town in Michigan, actually, that but his main client is Anheuser-Busch, and he just sometimes he's working 80 hours a week for him. Sometimes it's 20, but that's the way he likes it, because it allows some flexibility in his life, and travel and whatnot. So.
Absolutely. We had a couple of ladies come in to help lead our critique during our magazine design project. Okay. One is a professional photographer. The other lady is an editor who works for ESPNW, so the internet version of ESPN for women. And I always find that interesting to bring her into class, and they're like, "Wow, she works for ESPN." I said, "Yes, and she lives in Coopersville." It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is neat. You can do that.
So you can do that, and that's what's neat about it. So
yeah. So do you yearn for the old days? I mean, I have a friend who collects old movie posters, and they were all done by artists, and he doesn't like the new ones that are all computer-generated images and whatnot.
Sure.
Do you yearn for the old days, or do you like the new capabilities we have in the field?
I'm very much a mixture of both.
Okay.
This summer, I went back to my old school roots, and actually, it's funny you say that. I did a 4-foot by 6-foot painting in an old vintage poster style, and hand painted, and it was wonderful.
Yeah,
just
you love doing it.
Just to unplug, and it was very freeing for me, because I really enjoyed that process. Now, eventually down the road, I will probably take that and get it into a digital format and make it available, and take it into Photoshop and maybe clean a few things up, and then perhaps be able to sell it. But I really enjoy the old. I think it's a great source of inspiration, and we often will bring in different magazines and periodicals that we can show to the class to get for inspiration. Because really, I think creativity, it's really timeless when you can see how somebody really solves particular projects, even if it was 50 years ago, it's still as beautiful as it was then.
Right,
you know,
right.
so.
Even though times have changed. So, what about the future of graphic design? Where do you see it going?
The crystal ball question.
Yeah, I mean, or at least maybe what can you see clearly and what
Sure.
you don't know?
Yeah, it's so tough, but I think the biggest change is, like I had mentioned before, our field changed so much, even in my career, going from those hands-on tools to everything becoming digital, and we literally saw things change overnight. Things that we used to use, we used type houses and whatnot, and they were out of business as soon as we could generate our own type on our computers. And of course, everyone can now.
Yeah.
We don't think about it, but going forward, everyone has a smartphone, and everything that I read says this is where we're headed. Even laptops, which we think are, I have a laptop myself. That's where I do the majority of my work.
Yeah.
And I have a tablet as well, and they're all, as I'm watching those trends, they're saying, hey, things are moving to tablets, and that's kind of blurring the lines of, you may not need your laptop anymore. It's going to be a tablet, and then so many people though make a lot of their decisions right from their smartphone.
Yeah, that's true.
So we teach
events are not posters; it's Facebook event or wherever.
Yes. So we spend a fair amount of time learning the foundational things, but firmly believe that those need to be applied also in a digital format.
Right.
So we see things probably getting smaller and handheld, but they still require a designer's touch to help with creating those messages.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. So if someone is interested in pursuing a degree here or a certificate at MCC, how would they contact you, or what would be the way to go about that?
Sure, they could give me a call at 231-777-0290, or email. It's kevin.kaiser, and my last name is spelled Kayser.
Okay.
At muskegoncc.edu. So either of those, but you can find me. I'm in the business department.
Okay. Just
Google
you, I'm sure.
Google me. Yeah, you could find me on the website.
Okay.
But be happy to talk to anyone, and if they'd like to sit in on a class.
Oh, I can even do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and see, you do have a pretty cool setup here. So
we do have a pretty cool setup.
So I can see all that you have to offer.
Right.
And and I think also wouldn't most people, even if you don't foresee yourself working in graphic design, I suppose it's still a good skill set to have.
It is. We offer we have some night classes, and I have some students that are coming in there, and they're that's not their main focus of their job, but they've decided, or their boss has said, hey, why don't you take a class there, and you can get some skills in some of these specific areas, and that will help us in our business. So I'm seeing more and more of that, and I think it is a good little skill set to have. If you're, especially in the smaller business type area.
Yeah, you got to be a jack of all trades.
Right, and we need you to create a flyer or whatever that is.
Right.
We can help you with that.
Well, great. So. Well, thanks for being on the show, and I appreciate all you do at MCC.
All right, thank you very much, Andy.
And thank you, everyone, for watching Timely Topics. We've been talking to Kevin Kaiser. He's an instructor of graphic design at Muskegon Community College, and I'm sure he'd love to hear from you if you have any questions or concerns. Take care, and until next time, have a great day.